Hey guys, Mike Chin speaking. Um, as we go on this journey to be the best version of ourselves we can be, the question needs to be asked, what is a man? As I searched for the answers, it became apparent to me that, men today face a huge problem with all this conflicting information and, we need to be politically correct. And we're faced with this challenge all the time with doing life. What is a man? Now, while the answer to this question of what is a man can be quite a personal one, I believe there are just a few characteristics that frame, what a man should look like in today's society. So the problem that we face is not a small one. Today men appear to be lost, and we need as men to find ourselves fast. We feel like that we've lost our purpose, lost our identity, and unfortunately that affects the very fabric of society. Now, if you look at the stats, they tell the true story about what is the problem. As a family man, I think the number one issue for me is the number of fatherless families is on the increase. These men that aren't with the families are either absent, they leave when the child is born, for all various types of reason, and sometimes if they are present, there's substance abuse. Not all of them, of course, but there's some substance abuse, verbal and physical violence. In our first world society, I think the other issue is that if the men are still in the house, then they're mentally absent. They're just not present with the family. While their initial desire is to serve the family, in essence, what they do is they put a lot of weight on making a living and generating income, and the family takes second place, and they don't fulfill their role as a father and head of the family, and things just get out of balance. Now, the big problem is, if there's no men leading the families, then the societal foundation of a family unit is crumbling. If you take out the men, then you take out the wife or the spouse, and then in turn you take out the children. And if you take out the children, then you take out the generations. So this issue we face is enormous. So while I thought to myself, I can't do everything, I've got to do something. And that's why I've created this program called the Stretcher Bearers. Now, the truth is, as I look back over my own life, I'm a broken man that I needed help, and I still do need help. I still do need help, and I will do to my last breath. Now, while I was busy doing life the best I could, I didn't believe that I had the support of other men, which I think would have helped, over my own journey. So, as I was reading the Bible, one of the stories that put a fire in my belly was the story about the stretcher bearers, and it talked in Mark 2, 1 to 12, and it's also another version is in Luke 5. And the story is only a few verses long, but it really spoke to me, spoke to my soul. So basically the story is about 4 men that carried a paralysed friend on a stretcher to get him some help. They wanted to take him to this man called Jesus to get healed. When they got to the house, they couldn't get in due to the crowds that were gathered around the house that Jesus was in. And as they got closer, they looked for they looked at the front door, too busy. They couldn't get in. The back door, they couldn't get in. So they didn't say no because they knew their friend needed help. So what they did is they climbed the roof of the house and cut a hole in the roof and lowered their friend down. So at the end, their friend got healed. Now, there's lots of different lessons in these short verses, but the things that really stuck out for me was that men helped men, right? They helped each other to get the help they needed. But in today's society, that's hardly ever seen. Men don't hang around together, and if they are, it's not in that framework of giving other men help. The other thing that stuck out for me in that story was love and friendship. Mateship, if you're an Aussie. These friends, of the paralysed man cared for him enough to put both time and effort to help him. I loved it how they had that whatever it took attitude, to help their friend. You can't walk? No problem. Too many people at the house to see Jesus? No problem. Can't see a way through? No problem. Whatever it takes, they were going to get him the help that he needed. And the other thing, they just didn't, they took action, right? So they didn't just pray for him, which I'm not saying prayer's not needed, but, they did everything in their power to do whatever it took to get the help that he needed. They got the stretcher, they picked him up, and they walked him to get the help that he needed. They took action. So I'd encourage you to take some time and read the story for yourself, Mark 2, and see how that speaks to you. So just like the stretcher bearers in the story, I'd like to invite you to become part of a small group of guys that can, give you help that you need, but also it gives you the right platform for you to help others as well. Sometimes you actually can carry the stretcher, like I said, and other times you just need to be on it. So back to that question, what is a man? So I had two options when I was looking at this question. I could look at, and the first option I looked at was the world. So what does the world tell us we need to be a man? We need to be rich. We need to be famous. Sometimes we need to be aggressive. We need to have big guns. That'll make us a man. Maybe we need facial hair to be a man. Or maybe we need facial hair, tats, and be cool hanging around with wolves. Crazy, right? So maybe that's the right image of a man. Or maybe the world tells us, we need the money in the bank. Maybe we need to live in that mansion. Or maybe it's the car we drive. Or what about the number of pretty women we conquer? All very temporal, and for me, very shallow. And then what does the world say? What's the conversation around? What are some of the sayings around men? So things like, boys don't cry. Man up. Things like boys will be boys. Take it like a man. Don't be a mummy's boy. A real man doesn't eat quiche. A real man doesn't feel that way. A real man doesn't talk. All these sayings that are bound in our society that tell us what a man should be like, and all the other things that I showed earlier. We need to be rich, famous, and all that type of stuff. And that's the lie we've been sold, and that's the lie we as men tend to pursue. We chase those things down, and a bit like Ecclesiastes is, we're chasing the wind. So for me, I asked the question, what the other option? Where else do I find out what a true man should look like? One was the world, and the other is, I believe, is the author of life, right? The person that actually made us, and he's actually given us an instruction book on how to do life well as men, and that is God's word, the Bible. Now, I don't profess to be an expert in the Bible. I'm learning as I go, and we're all on that journey. But the model I want to share with you comes from my own experiences and some research that I've taken from different books that I've read and some courses that I attended. And the goal of this model that I'm going to give you is just a framework so you can better understand maybe the challenges that men have, and maybe yourself, and a way for you to work on some areas in your life one step at a time. Now, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I trust that this model will actually help you in your own journey. I've called it Your Compass because I believe men are lost and they need some types of direction. So I've drawn on that analogy of a compass to give you some type of direction. So in this next video, I'll show you, just explain how the Your Compass works, and hopefully give you a better framework to participate in the program. Anyway, that's what it is to be a man. Cheers.